The chamber was filled with voices. Harsh voices, sharp like knives, echoing against the walls of steel. Alien eyes turned toward the small figure standing in the center. She was human. She was alone. They laughed. Their laughter was not soft, not kind, it was cruel. It was the sound of predators mocking prey. The council of the great species sat on their high seats, wings folded, claws shining, and teeth bared. They looked down at her, as if she was nothing more than dust in the air. "She is weak," one of them said, his voice deep and heavy. "Her kind are fragile. Bones break. Flesh burns. They die too easily. They should not even be here." The words fell on her like cold rain, but she did not move. Her eyes stayed calm. Her hands did not shake. She listened as if their voices were nothing but distant thunder. The council chamber lights glowed red, then dimmed. A trial was about to begin. Not a trial of law, but of strength. That was how the high species judged worth. It's not by words, not by wisdom, but by survival. They called it the passage of fire. Few survived it. None of her kind had ever walked through it. And that was why they laughed. To them, she was already dead. Her name was Lyra. She did not speak it out loud, but she carried it inside her chest like a hidden flame. She had not come here to beg. She had not come to kneel. She had come to show them what humans were made of. The gate opened. Heat rolled out like a living beast. The air shimmered. The fire waited inside the passage, burning white and gold, hungry for anything that dared to step within. The aliens leaned forward in their seats. Their mocking grew louder. "She will scream before the second step. She will fall to her knees. She will beg us to stop it." But Lyra did not look at them. Her eyes stayed on the flames. For a long moment she stood still, as if she was listening to something they could not hear. Then she moved. First step was slow, deliberate. The fire touched her skin, but she did not flinch. She walked deeper. The flames curled around her body, rising, twisting, trying to swallow her whole. Yet she did not stop. The council's laughter faded. Their voices grew quieter. One leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. Another tilted her head, confused. This was not how it was supposed to go. The fire grew hotter. Sparks fell like burning rain. The air roared like a storm. Her hair caught the light, glowing as if made from the fire itself. Sweat rolled down her face, but her eyes stayed sharp. Every step she took was heavy, as if the weight of the galaxy pressed against her shoulders. Inside her chest, her heart pounded. Her body screamed to stop, to turn back, to collapse. But her mind whispered something stronger. Keep moving. Do not give them what they want. Behind her, silence fell over the chamber. No one laughed now. No one mocked. The great species watched with wide eyes. For the first time they saw not weakness, but something else, something dangerous. The fire licked. At her arms, her legs, her back. Pain tore through her, sharp and endless. But still she walked, step after step. The flames bent around her as if they were not enough to break her, and then, without warning, she stopped. In the center of the fire, she stood tall. Her breathing was heavy, but her eyes burned brighter than the flames themselves. She looked up at the council, her gaze steady, unbroken. The silence grew heavier than the fire. It pressed down on every creature in the chamber. None of them had expected this. None of them understood. How could something so fragile walk through the storm of their trial? She took another step, and another.
Slowly.
The fire behind her began to fade. Step by step, she moved toward the end of the passage. Some of the council members rose to their feet, unable to sit still. Their claws dug into the railing. Their wings twitched with unease. She should be ash, one whispered. She should have fallen, another hissed. But Lyra did not fall. She walked until the last flame broke apart and the air cooled again. When she stepped out of the passage, the ground beneath her was blackened, burned. Her clothes were torn. Her skin bore marks of fire, but she stood. She stood taller than she ever had before, and the chamber was silent. She looked up at them, her voice quiet but steady, weak. Her single word cut sharper than any blade. None of the council answered. They only stared. Their eyes filled with something they had never felt before, toward a human fear. The silence did not last long, because this was only the beginning. The fire was gone, but the echo of it still lived in her body. Her skin burned, her muscles trembled, but Lyra kept her spine straight. She would not give them the sight of weakness. Not now, not ever. The council members shifted in their seats. The silence had become too heavy, pressing on them like a stone. They had laughed at her before, but now their eyes could not leave her. She was not supposed to survive. No human ever had. And yet here she stood, breathing, alive, unbroken. One of the great ones leaned forward. His body was covered with scaled armor, his voice deep like thunder. "How did you walk through the fire?" His tone was not mocking now. It was sharp, demanding. Lyra raised her eyes to him. She said nothing. She let the question hang in the air. The truth was simple. She did not know. She only knew she could not stop, not when her people's honor was on the line. Her silence made them restless. Another creature, tall with silver wings, hissed, "You think this proves anything? You survived because the fire was merciful? But fire does not measure strength. You are still fragile. You're still lesser." The others nodded, eager to believe. Her victory meant nothing. But there was unease in their movements. Their voices shook. A low hum filled the chamber. The floor lit up with symbols of old trials. The chamber itself seemed alive, answering the council's decision. They would test her again. "The fire was only the first passage," said the winged one. "You must face the second, if you survive. We will know if you are worthy." Lyra's hands curled into fists. She was tired, her body begging her to rest. But she met their gaze without fear. "Show me," she said. A hiss ran through the chamber. It was not laughter this time, met with surprise. This human dared to demand more. This small creature who should have been broken now asked for another trial. The gate on the other side of the chamber opened. Cold air spilled out like a river of ice. Inside was darkness, deep and endless. The second passage was not fire. It was shadow. The creatures whispered among themselves. "The darkness will eat her mind. She will lose herself before she takes 10 steps. She cannot face the night. She will scream." Lyra heard their whispers, but she did not pause. Her feet moved forward, slow but steady. She stepped into the dark dot. At once, the cold wrapped around her. It was not like fire. Fire had hurt her body. But this was different. This darkness touched her thoughts. It pressed against her mind like claws scratching from the inside. Her breath grew shallow. The chamber was gone. The world around her shifted. She was no longer standing in a passage. She was standing in the ruins of Earth. She saw fire across the sky, broken cities, empty streets, the faces of the dead, her people, her family. It's all gone. The darkness whispered in her ear, soft and cruel. "This is your truth. This is the fate of your kind. You are weak. You cannot change it." Her chest tightened. Her knees wanted to bend. She wanted to scream, but she clenched her teeth. She knew it was not real. It was the shadow trying to break her. The images changed. Now she saw herself, small, broken, falling to her knees in front of the council. She heard their laughter again, louder than before. "This is you," the darkness whispered. "This is all you are." Her heart pounded. For a moment her body shook, but then she remembered the fire. She remembered the steps she took when everything in her screamed to stop. She remembered walking through pain and rising at the end. Her voice, though trembling, broke the silence. "I am not weak," the darkness hissed. The shadows tried to close in, but she took another step, and another. Her mind burned, her chest ached, but she kept walking. The illusions shifted again. Now she saw her people live. They were watching. Her, their faces lit with hope. It was not real, but it felt real enough. And she held on to that hope like a rope pulling her forward. Step after step, the shadows broke apart. The whispers grew fainter. The cold began to fade. She pushed forward until the dark behind her shattered and light returned. The chamber came back into view. The council was watching, silent again, their eyes wide, their claws still. Lyra stumbled once but caught herself. She lifted her chin. Her voice was steady. 2 passages. What else? The silence was heavy. Some of the creatures looked away, unable to meet her eyes. Others narrowed theirs, filled with something darker than before. Not mockery, not even fear. It was anger. She had done what they thought was impossible. Twice, and in doing so, she had shown something dangerous. She had shown that a human could stand where they could not. The winged one leaned forward, his voice low and cold. This is not over. Lyra did not smile, but inside her fire burned again. She was ready, and somewhere deep inside the chamber, a 3rd gate began to glow. The 3rd gate glowed with a strange light. Not fire, not shadow. It was green, pulsing, alive. The sound of a slow heartbeat filled the chamber, deep and steady, like the world itself was breathing. The council stirred. Her wings rustled, claws scraped against the metal seats. None of them mocked her this time. They were curious. They were afraid to admit it, but they wanted to see if she could face this one. Lyra stood at the center of the chamber. Her body was weak, her skin still burned from the fire, and her mind still ached from the shadows. But her eyes stayed fixed on the 3rd gate. She did not ask what waited inside. She did not need to. She knew she would walk through it no matter what. The silver-winged creature hissed. The passage of the heart, the most cruel of all. Da-da-da. Is not flames. It is not illusions. It is the truth. The others nodded. Their eyes gleamed with hunger. They wanted to see her fall. They wanted to see the truth destroy her. The gate opened. A rush of air swept through the chamber, warm and heavy, carrying scents of earth and rain. Lyra stepped forward without waiting. She walked into the green light. The world around her shifted. Suddenly, she was no longer in the chamber. She was standing in a wide field under a blue sky. The wind carried the scent of flowers, and there in the distance, she saw them humans, her people, children laughing, families walking, soldiers standing tall. The earth she remembered alive and whole. For a moment, her chest ached with longing, wanted to run to them, to feel their arms around her, but she stopped. She knew this was not real. The ground beneath her shook. The blue sky cracked. The laughter turned into screams. She saw the alien fleets descending, fire raining from the heavens. She saw her people running, falling, burning. She was powerless to stop it. Her heart twisted. The trial was not pain of body or tricks of the mind. It was something worse. It was guilt. It was helplessness. It was love being torn away in front of her eyes. The voice of the chamber filled her ears, low and endless. This is your weakness, human. You love too deeply. You cannot let go. Your heart will break you. Her knees wanted to bend. Her eyes burned with tears. She could almost feel the weight of every death pressing against her chest. The trial wanted her to believe that love was her flaw, that care, that hope, that connection it would destroy her. But as the images burned around her, Lyra forced. Her eyes opened wide. Her breath came heavy. Her fists shook. She whispered to herself, "No, this is not weakness. This is what makes us strong." The illusions screamed louder. Her family's faces turned to ash before her eyes. But she stood. Her ground. Her voice grew louder. Humans love. Humans care. That is why we fight. That is why we stand. The green light pulsed faster, angry, like a living thing that could not break her. The field cracked. The sky shattered. The screams faded into silence. And then she was back in the chamber. The council leaned forward, her eyes sharp with disbelief. She was breathing hard, sweat pouring down her face, but she stood tall again. Her chest rose and fell, but her eyes blazed. One of the scaled ones hissed, "Impossible. The passage of the heart destroys even the strongest among us." Looked at them and spoke, her voice steady, despite the trembling in her body. You do not understand. You think love is weakness. But for humans, it is the reason we rise. It is the reason we never stop. Her words echoed in the chamber, bouncing against the steel walls, heavy with truth. For the first time, some of the council did not sneer. They did not hiss. They looked at her with something else in certainty. But others were furious. Their claws scraped louder, their wings shook. The silver-winged one slammed his hand against the railing. Enough. This is a trick. She cannot pass again. She must face the fourth passage. Let her be broken, the chamber roared. Voices clashed, some demanding her downfall, others whispering that perhaps this human was something new. Lyra did not wait for their arguments to end. She lifted her chin, her voice firm, then opened the next gate. The chamber fell silent. The council stared at her. This fragile creature, burned, shaken, exhausted, still asked for more. Slowly, the fourth gate began to glow. This time, its light was dark blue, heavy, and deep, like the endless sea. Lyra took a deep breath. Her body trembled, but her fire inside burned brighter. She had walked through fire. She had survived shadow. She had faced her heart, and now she would face the ocean. The fourth gate opened with a heavy groan. Dark blue light poured out, thick and heavy like water spilling into the chamber. A sound filled the air low, endless. Like waves crashing against distant rocks, the council leaned forward, eager again. The silver-winged one hissed. The passage of depth, the drowning trial, it will crush her body. It will crush her spirit. She cannot survive this one. Lyra's body ached. Her arms shook with weakness. Her legs felt like stone. She did not stop. She had walked through fire. She had survived shadows. She had faced her heart. She could not turn back now. She stepped forward into the dark blue light. At once, the ground beneath her vanished. She fell, not onto stone, but into water. Cold, endless water. It wrapped around her, heavy, pulling her down. She kicked. She pushed upward, but the weight was too strong. The sea did not care who she was. It wanted to drag her into the abyss. Her chest burned as she fought for breath. The silence was thick, broken only by the pounding of her heart. She opened her eyes and saw nothing but deep black water stretching in all directions. No sky. Surface, no end. The voice of the chamber whispered through the currents. This is where your kind dies, human. Fragile lungs. You do not belong in the depths. Her body screamed. Her chest tightened. She needed air. The instinct to open her mouth, to breathe, almost overpowered her. But she clenched her teeth and pushed deeper. She would not let the water win. Shapes moved in the darkness. Huge forms, shadows with eyes glowing faintly. They circled her, predators of the deep. One brushed past her, its scales like stone. Another opened jaws wide, lined with teeth longer than her arms. She forced herself not to panic. She remembered the fire. She remembered the shadows. She remembered her heart, and she whispered inside her mind, "Keep moving."
Always forward.
Her arms and legs felt heavy, but she moved. The predators followed, their eyes fixed on her, waiting for her to slow, waiting for her to fail. Her lungs burned hotter. Her body shook. She wanted to scream, to let the water fill her. But in her mind, she saw Earth. She saw her people standing. Behind her, she saw the children she swore would never live in chains. That image pulled her through the water stronger than any muscle. And then, in the endless dark, she saw a faint light below. A glow like the heart of a star resting on the ocean floor. Her body screamed to stop, but she pushed harder. Stroke after stroke. Predators closed in, their jaws opening wide, but she ignored them. She kept her eyes on the light. Finally, her hand touched it. Warmth spread through her arm, through her chest, through her whole body. The ocean around her trembled. The predators pulled back, their glowing eyes dimming. The dark water began to dissolve into mist. She gasped. Air filled her lungs. She collapsed onto solid ground again. The chamber returned. The blue light faded from the gate. Lyra lay on her knees, coughing, her chest rising and falling with sharp breaths. But she was alive. She had not drowned. She had reached the light. The council erupted with noise. Some shouted in disbelief. Others hissed with rage. A few sat silent. Their eyes locked on her with something dangerous respect. The scaled one slammed his claws on the railing. Impossible. She should not have returned. No human can endure the depth. She lifted her head, meeting their gaze. Her face was pale, her hair clung wet to her skin, but her eyes burned like fire.
Ow!
She forced herself to her feet. Her voice was hoarse but steady. You keep asking the same question?
Ow.
Why, you do not understand. She took a slow breath, her chest still aching. Humans don't survive because we are stronger. We survive because we refuse to stop, even when the world drowns us. Her words struck them harder than the trials. Some of the council lowered their eyes. Others clenched their fists. The silver-winged one bared her teeth. You think endurance makes you equal? Foolish creature, for passages do not make you worthy. There are more. And the next one will not forgive you. The fifth gate began to glow. This time, it was bright white, so bright the whole chamber shook. The light was sharp, blinding, merciless. Lyra's legs trembled. She was exhausted. Every breath a battle. But she straightened her back. She was ready. Because now, she knew something the council did not. Every trial made her weaker in body. But every trial also made her stronger in spirit. And spirit was something they could not understand. She stared at the white light of the fifth gate, her eyes unblinking, and she whispered to herself, "Forward." The fifth gate burned like a star. White light filled the chamber, blinding and sharp, stabbing into every corner. The council members shielded their eyes with wings and claws, but Lyra did not. She stared at the light, unflinching. Her body trembled with exhaustion. She had walked through fire, through shadow, through the breaking of her heart and the drowning depths. Her lungs ached, her legs felt heavy, her skin still burned with old pain. But she did not step back. She moved toward the gate, the silver-winged. One hissed, her voice trembling with anger. This passage has ended warriors far greater than her. The light strips away all lies. It will show her what she truly is. She will not endure. Lyra stepped into the white glow. At once the world around her vanished. There was no chamber, no council, no walls, only light. Endless, merciless light, pressed against her skin, seared her eyes, filled her lungs. She could not see. She could not hide. And then the light spoke not in words, but in truth. It showed her herself. Her reflection stood before her, made of light. It was her face, her body, her eyes. But it was broken. Weak, fragile, every scar, every fear, every failure carved into her like open wounds. You are nothing, the reflection said. Its voice was hers, but sharper, crueler. You survived by luck, by chance. You are small, alone. You will break. Her chest tightened, her knees bent. She wanted to close her eyes, but the light did not allow it. Every mistake of her life stood before her. Every time she had failed, every time she had fallen, every moment she had doubted herself. The reflection stepped closer. You think you walk for your people? No, you walk because you fear being forgotten. You walk because you are weak and you think pain makes you strong. Her hand shook. Her heart pounded. The words cut deep because some part of her feared they were true. The light stripped away her defenses. There was no fire to fight, no shadows to resist, no water to escape. Only truth. She almost fell. Her breath came ragged. Her eyes filled with tears, but then she remembered. She remembered the fire that tried to burn her. She remembered the shadows that whispered lies. She remembered the ocean that tried to drown her. Each time, she had kept moving. Her voice, though weak, broke the silence. Yes, I am small. I am fragile. I am afraid. The reflection paused. Its glowing eyes narrowed. But that is what makes me human, she whispered. Her tears burned against the light. We are afraid. We fail. We fall. But we rise again. Every time. That is our strength.
Ah!
The reflection's form began to shake. Cracks of shadow split through its glowing body. Lyra stepped closer, her voice growing steadier. You cannot break me by showing me my weakness. I already know it. Carry it with me. And it is why I fight, the reflection screamed. The sound was like glass shattering. Its body of light split apart, breaking into 1,000 shards that dissolved into the endless white. The glow around her softened. The blinding light dimmed. And then the chamber returned. Lyra stumbled back onto the floor, her body weak, but her eyes bright with fire. The fifth gate closed behind her. The council sat in stunned silence. Their wings twitched, their claws tapped nervously against the railings. None spoke. None laughed. Finally, the silver-winged one slammed her fist down, breaking the silence. This cannot continue. No fragile human should pass 5 passages. This is against order, against truth. But another council member spoke, his scaled voice low. Perhaps the order we believed was never true. The chamber filled with tension. Some members glared with fury. Others looked uncertain, their eyes shifting to Lyra with a mix of fear and respect. Lyra lifted her head, sweat dripping down her face, her body trembling with exhaustion. But her voice cut through the chamber with sharpness. You call me weak, yet I am still here. What does that make you? The words silenced them. No one answered. And then the 6th gate began to glow. This time, the light was not fire, or shadow, or ocean, or truth. It was red deep, bloody red, pulsing like a beating heart. The chamber shook. Even the council shifted uneasily. One of them whispered, almost to himself, the passage of war. Lyra turned to face it. Her body was failing, but her spirit burned brighter than ever. She took a step forward, because if it was war they wanted, then war they would see. The 6th gate pulsed with a deep red glow. The chamber shook with every beat like the thundering of a giant heart. The air grew heavy, thick with the smell of iron and smoke. The council members shifted uneasily in their seats. Even they did not look comfortable before this trial. The passage of war, one of the scaled creatures whispered. His voice was not mocking, but fearful, the most violent of them all. Lyra's body trembled. Her skin still burned from fire. Her lungs still ached from the depths, and her mind was raw from the light. She could barely stand. But when the red gate opened wider, she did not hesitate. She stepped into the glow. The world around her changed at once. She was standing in the middle of a battlefield. The sky was black with smoke. The ground was torn apart, broken by craters and fire. The air was filled with the screams of the dying and the clash of steel. Her hands were no longer empty. A blade was in her grip, heavy and sharp. Her body was dressed in armor, dented and bloody. She looked down and saw her own hands shaking, covered with dirt and crimson. Before her, 1,000 warriors stood. They were not human. They were alien. Beasts tall and monstrous, with claws and blades of their own. And behind her, she heard voices, human voices. She turned and saw them. Men and women in armor, soldiers of her kind, looking to her, waiting for her. Her chest tightened. She understood. This trial was not about fire or water or light. It was about choice, about leadership. A roar shook the air. The alien army charged, a tide of claws and steel. The ground thundered with their march. Her people looked at her, their eyes wide with fear. They were waiting for her to move, to speak, to lead. Her blade shook in her grip. She had never led an army. She had never been a general. She wanted to scream that she was only one person, only human. Too small for this, but she remembered every step she had taken. Fire, shadow, heart, depth, light. She had not walked them for herself. She had walked them for this moment. For her people. She raised her blade high. Her voice cut through the chaos. Stand with me. Fight with me. For humanity, the human soldiers roared, their voices shaking the battlefield. It charged at her side, meeting the alien tide. The ground exploded with violence. Claws struck against steel. Screams filled the air. Lyra swung her blade, blocking, cutting, moving forward. Each strike shook her arms. Each wound burned her skin. But she refused to fall. The battle was endless. For every alien that fell, two more came. For every human that screamed, another stepped forward. Blood painted the ground red. Bodies fell. All around her, but Lyra pushed forward. The red light of the trial pulsed with each heartbeat, feeding the chaos. She could feel the weight of every life pressing on her shoulders. If she failed, her people would be crushed. If she fell, they would all fall. Her legs shook, her arms bled, but she screamed and fought harder. She pushed through the enemy blade, flashing, voice rising, forward, do not stop. Her people followed. They fought like fire, like thunder. They fell, but they rose again. 'Cause Lyra was in front of them and she refused to stop. Hours felt like days. The battle roared with no end. But slowly, slowly, the tide began to turn. The alien warriors faltered. The humans pressed harder. And finally, Lyra's blade cut through the last enemy. His roar silenced as he fell to the ground. The battlefield grew quiet. The smoke cleared. The screams faded. Only the sound of breathing remained. Lyra stood in the center, her armor cracked, her blade broken, her body trembling. Around her, her people stood too, battered but alive. They looked at her with eyes not of fear, but of trust. And then the battlefield dissolved. The red light faded, the chamber returned. Lyra dropped the broken blade. It vanished from her hands as if it had never been real. She fell to one knee, breathing hard, sweat and blood covering her skin. The council was silent. They had seen the battle too. They had seen her lead. They had seen her win. The silver-winged one rose to her feet, her voice sharp with fury. This is impossible. She cannot pass 6 passages. No creature of flesh can endure this much. Another council member, older and quiet, spoke slowly. Perhaps flesh is not weakness. Perhaps spirit is stronger than bone? The chamber rippled with unease. Some hissed, some whispered, some sat silent. Lyra forced herself to stand again. Her voice was low, but steady. 6 trials, 6 victories. What else will you throw at me? The council hesitated. For the first time, some of them looked uncertain, as if afraid to open the next gate. But the chamber did not wait for them. The 7th gate began to glow, dark and cold. This time, the light was black, deeper than shadow, heavier than the ocean. Lyra's breath caught. She had no idea what waited there. But she knew one thing. She would walk into it, because humans do not stop. The 7th gate pulsed with black light. It was darker than shadow, heavier than night. The chamber grew cold, the air turning still as stone. Even the council members shifted in their seats. Their claws twitched, their wings folded tight. One of them spoke in a low whisper, almost afraid. The passage of the void. Few have faced it. Fewer have returned. Lyra stood in the center, her body trembling with exhaustion. Every step of the trials had torn pieces from her. Her skin burned, her lungs ached, her bones felt hollow. But she did not look away from the gate. The black light spread across the chamber, swallowing the walls, the council, the floor beneath. Her feet, Lyra was pulled inside. At once, there was nothing. No sound, no air, no ground, no body. She floated in endless emptiness, weightless and alone. Her hands were gone. Her voice was gone. She had no form, no anchor, no self. The void whispered. It was not a voice, but a silence so deep it pressed against her soul. This is the truth of existence. Nothing. You are nothing. Humanity is nothing. Dust and endless dark, her thoughts blurred. Her memory slipped away like sand through fingers. She tried to remember the fire, the ocean, the battlefield, but they faded. She tried to remember Earth, her people, her name, but even that dimmed. There is no Lyra, the void whispered. There is no human strength, only emptiness, only silence. Only the end. For a moment, she almost surrendered. It would be easy to dissolve, to stop fighting, to become nothing, but deep inside, a spark remained. Small, fragile, but real. It was not strength of body. It was not the fire of anger. It was memory, a single memory, a voice, a laugh. Her mother's hand holding hers when she was a child. That spark burned in the darkness. Lyra clung to it with everything she had. She whispered into the void, not with lips, but with her soul. I am human. The void hissed, pressing harder, trying to erase her. Her spark flickered, but it did not go out. She whispered again, stronger. I am Lyra. I am human. We do not vanish. The darkness trembled. More memories returned. Her father's voice, her friend's laughter, the faces of her people waiting for her, the soldiers who had followed her in war, the children she had promised to protect. Each memory burned brighter. Each one was a flame. Together, they lit the endless dark. The void screamed if emptiness could scream. But Lyra stood her ground, her soul burning with every face, every voice, every memory. Her words echoed louder. Humans are not nothing. We are stories. We are memories. We are endless through each other. You cannot erase us. The blackness cracked. Light tore through it like lightning splitting the sky. The void shattered into 1,000 pieces, collapsing around her. And then silence. The chamber returned. Lyra fell to her knees, her chest heaving, her body drenched in sweat though no battle had been fought. Her skin was pale, her eyes hollow, but inside them, fire still burned. The council stared. None spoke. Some looked shaken. Others looked furious. Finally, the silver-winged one rose, her face twisted with rage. Enough. She cannot pass again. No human has endured 7 passages. This is a lie, a trick. But the older scaled one spoke, his voice calm, heavy. No trick. We all saw. She walked the void and returned. She carried her kind with her. Perhaps that is their strength. The chamber rippled with whispers. Fear, doubt, wonder. Lyra forced herself to stand. Her legs trembled, her body broken, but her voice carried like iron. 7 trials, 7 victories. And I still stand? What else will you demand? The chamber fell silent again. The council members exchanged uneasy glances. None wished to answer, but the chamber itself did. The 8th gate began to glow. It was not fire, not shadow, not ocean, light, war, or void. Its glow was golden, bright but soft, heavy but calm, even. The council recoiled. One whispered with fear, the final passage. The passage of ascendance. Lyra's breath shook. Ah! She did not know what it meant. But she knew one thing. She would walk it. Because humans do not stop. The 8th gate glowed with golden light. Not cruel like fire, not cold like the void. It was warm, heavy, eternal. The chamber itself trembled as if bowing to its power. Even the mighty council leaned back in silence. Their eyes filled with unease. The passage of ascendance, one of them whispered. The last trial. Few have faced it. None have returned unchanged. Lyra stood before the gate. Her body was broken. Her skin carried burns. Her lungs still ached with water. Her heart bled from war. Her mind still echoed with the void. Could barely stand. Yet her eyes fixed on the light. Slowly, step by step, she walked into the gate. The chamber vanished. The light swallowed her whole. She found herself standing on an endless plain of gold. The sky above blazed with stars brighter than she had ever seen. The air was calm, silent, but heavy with something greater than pain or fear. And then she felt it. Every trial she had faced pressed onto her at once. The fire burned her skin again. The shadows whispered lies. The ocean drowned her. The light stripped her bare. The war tore her apart. The void pulled at her soul. All of it together, crashing down like a storm. Her body buckled. Her knees slammed against the golden ground. For the first time, she could not rise. The voice of the passage filled the sky. This is not about survival. It's about becoming. If you break, you die as human. If you endure, you rise as more. Her chest heaved, her arms shook. She could not lift herself. The weight was too much. Her vision blurred. She was falling, but then she remembered. She remembered the council's laughter. The way they mocked her kind, calling humans weak, fragile, nothing. She remembered every step she had taken through pain, through fear, through lies. And she remembered why she had walked them. Not for herself, for her people. For every human who had been silenced. For every voice that had been mocked. For every child who deserved to grow beneath a sky free of chains. Her body screamed. Her bones felt like glass. But deep inside, the spark returned. The same spark that had saved her in the void. The same spark that had carried her through the fire. She whispered, broken but steady, "I am human." The golden plain shook. The stars above blazed brighter. Her voice grew louder. "I am human. I fall. I bleed. I break, but I rise again. Always, that is who we are." The storm of trials screamed, pressing harder, but she did not bend. She pushed against the weight, her arms trembling, her legs shaking. Slowly, painfully, she rose to her feet. The golden sky split open. Light poured down, not to crush her, but to lift her. It wrapped around her body, searing and healing at once. Her scars glowed, her wounds closed. Her strength returned, not in muscle, but in spirit. The voice of the passage thundered. "You have endured. You have become. You are more than flesh. You are will. You are human." And then the light shattered. Lyra stumbled forward into the chamber once more. The golden glow vanished behind her. The eighth gate sealed shut. The council stared in silence. Not one moved, not one breathed. But they had mocked her. They had doubted her. They had waited for her to break. She had walked every passage. And she stood before them still. Her voice was quiet, but it carried across the chamber like thunder. "You called us weak. You called us nothing. But we walk through fire. We walk through shadow. We walk through war. And we rise. Always we rise." The chamber shook. The council did not laugh. They did not sneer. For the first time they bowed their heads, not out of respect for her alone, but for the truth she had proven. One of the oldest spoke, his voice low. "Perhaps humans are not weak. Perhaps they are something we cannot understand. Something greater." Lyra's body trembled, but she stood tall. Her journey was done. Her people would no longer be mocked, because she had shown them. Humans are not weak. Humans endure. Humans rise. And in that golden silence, every council member finally understood they had mocked the wrong species.